All right. Well, hey, welcome everybody to the 2022 Spark Education Technology Conference. So glad to have you here and so glad to have you in this session on engaging ELA activities with Google Docs. Before we get into the session, just a little bit of housekeeping things. First of all, do note we do have microphones and webcams turned off during the session, but we want to be able to hear from you. And so I do have the chat feature turned on and I have the Q&A feature turned on. So please, anytime throughout the session, feel free to drop comments, questions, ideas into the chat, or the Q&A feature is a great way to ask questions as well. You can get to that through the activities button in the bottom corner of the Google Meet. I would love to hear from you all throughout the session, so please feel free to communicate that way. A couple other quick things. If you do want to share out about what you've learned here today, we're encouraging you to use the hashtag SPARCC22 to let people know about the sessions you've attended. Quite a lot of sessions to choose from. There are live sessions and pre-recorded. The live sessions are being recorded, so check back later if there's one that you weren't able to see live. We will be replacing these links with the recorded links. It's going to take me a little bit of time to go back through and do that. But we got about 27 live sessions here today that you can pull from later. And then also the pre-recorded sessions. There's about 60 or so in there as well. For all of these sessions, you can get a certificate of attendance. Below the session description, you'll see a link for certificate of completion. If you fill that out, give it a little bit of time. I'm going to manually process through those, so it may be a day before you get your certificates, but we will get those sent out to everyone. Good stuff. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. And let's go ahead and get on into our session. So this is a session about using Google Docs in creative ways for ELA. Now, I don't want to just limit it and say, this is only for a teacher of, English language arts, but it's like ELA activities, which really apply to all subject areas, because we want to, write across the curriculum. We want, whatever subject somebody is teaching, you want reading and writing. And so these activities we're looking at today, I truly think could apply to any subject area, because we do want to be integrating, writing into all of those areas. I do have some resources for us today in this session, and I would encourage you to open up this resource document. It'll be a lot easier for you to follow along with what we're doing if you have this document open. It's at bit.ly/Kurtz-ELA docs. That'll get you into the resource document. Feel free to bookmark it. Feel free to add it to your drive. Feel free to make a copy of it, whatever works best for you. But that document is filled with lots and lots of templates and other resources that you can click on if you want to try these things out as we're going through. So I'm going to be jumping in this document quite a lot throughout the session to demonstrate these different activities. So feel free to pull that up. And if it makes it easier, I'll just copy and paste the link directly into the chat too. So for those that are here live, if that's easier for you, just to click on it in the chat. But everybody else at any point can use bit.ly/Kurtz-ELA docs to get there. Well, while you guys are pulling that up, brief introduction. Howdy, everybody. My name is Eric Kurtz. I am a tech integration specialist here at SPARCC, the Stark Portage Area Computer Consortium here in Northeast Ohio. My job is as a tech coach or a tech integration specialist to support about 35 school districts up here in the Northeast Ohio area. That's my day job. And then on the side, I also run the blog Control Alt Achieve, where I share out lots of ed tech resources. Today, though, for this session, we are focusing on creative ways to use Google Docs for reading and writing and other ELA activities. So the plan here for the session is basically, okay, we've got Google Docs and we love Google Docs. We use it all the time. The question is, what else can we do with it besides our normal use? And normally we think of using Google Docs like, oh, I'm using it to type up a paper. I'm writing a paper. I'm writing a report. Wonderful. Of course, that's what it's designed for. That's fantastic. What we're going to try to do in this session is say, okay, that's great. But what else? Could we use the features built into Google Docs to do some other fun, creative activities that might go beyond just, writing a report? And so that is the focus of this session. What we're going to be looking at are things that are just already part of Docs. You don't need to install anything for any of these activities. Although I absolutely love extensions and add-ons and things like that. We're not going to be doing any of that in this session. Everything we're looking at, this is something that's it's just part of Docs. These are things that are already built into Google Docs, and we're just trying to put a little twist on them and use them in a creative way. So I've got, I believe, 7 different activities. I don't know if we'll get through all 7 of them in the time. We'll do our best. We're going to start at the top and just start working our way down, and hopefully we'll get a chance to try out each one of these. But along the way, let me know. If you've got questions, if you've got comments, throw them in the chat, throw them in the Q&A. And like I said earlier, I would love to hear what you are doing with Google Docs. So I want to learn from you. So I hope I can get a couple more suggestions and ideas from you guys in the session as well. All right, I think that's it. I think we're ready to get going. One last reminder about the resource link. It is bit.ly/Kurtz-ELA docs. Awesome. All right, let's get going here. So our first activity that we're going to start off with, I'm just calling highlighting activities. And so for following along in the agenda document, once you get onto page 2, you'll see that is our first section here, highlighting activities. So what I'm talking about here are how could we use the highlighter tool in a Google Doc in a creative way for an ELA activity. So first of all, I'm sure we all are probably familiar with the highlighter tool. So for example, I've already highlighted a bunch of things in our document here. If you want to highlight something with the highlighter tool, you pretty much just select it with your mouse and you go up to the highlighter tool and then you say, oh, I want to make that bright yellow or something like that. Well, normally that's what we do, right? We use the highlighter tool to draw attention to something, to make it bright so we can see it. Well, what else could we do with it besides that? So we're going to look at a couple of different ideas for using the highlighter tool in a creative way. The first one is something that normally I believe is called text reduction strategy. And so this is a process to help students learn how to summarize, how to figure out the main ideas of an article that they're reading or of information that they're reading. And we can use the highlighter tool to do this. So little back story here. I first came across this concept years ago when I was reading this article about a teacher who did this with physical magazines and black Sharpies. What she would do is she would bring in a whole bunch of magazines to class and a big stack of black Sharpies, and she would tell the students, okay, I want you to flip through the magazine and find an article that you want to read. And then as you read the article, I want you to use the black Sharpie and I want you to mark out, cross out anything that's not critical to the main idea of the article. So the idea was helping them move towards summarization. So maybe instead of them coming up with their own words to summarize it, they're just removing the things that aren't critical, saying what's left over. Yeah, to me, that seems like the main idea. Now, not every student's going to agree on what gets, blacked out and what doesn't, but that was the idea, was to help them start moving towards summarization. Well, I thought that was a great idea, but I said, this would be great digitally because, that's a lot of magazines and Sharpies. And also you can't unsharpie something once you Sharpie it. And sometimes you make mistakes. I'm thinking, this would be perfect as a digital activity. So that's the first one I want to show you here, is how we can do this text reduction strategy with a Google document. So again, you don't have to click these links, but if you want to play along with me, they're all in here for you. So on page 2 of the agenda document, highlighted in green, I have a sample article that I'm going to be using for my demonstration. So this is an article about spiders. If you want to click on it with me and try it out too, please feel free to. You don't have to. You can, do your own article, or you can just watch, whatever works for you. But I'm going to click on my spider article. It's going to ask if I want a copy, and I'll say, yes, I do want a copy of my spider article. And once that gets copied, there we go. So this was an article I came across on Dogo News. Dogo News is a kids current event article website. And so I found this article about spiders and just copied it into this Google document. So the idea is, you could be the one giving the article to your students. Like, you could find an article, you could put it in a Google document, and then you could use like Google Classroom, for example, to push a copy out to each student, or however you want to get it out to them, so each student has their own copy of this. Or maybe you're letting the students pick. Maybe they're doing the same thing that teacher did. They're finding an article and they're putting it into the document. Either way, this is where we want to begin. We want them to have a Google document that has the actual article in there. And if you're looking for good places to find articles, I did include some of my favorites in here in the agenda document, things like Newsella, Tween Tribune, Wonderopolis, Dogo News. There's a bunch of great places to find articles for students to do this process with. Well, now that we've got the article, we begin the text reduction strategy. Now, we're not going to do the whole thing. I'll just do like the first paragraph just to show you the idea. We'll try to keep moving quickly here. But what the student would do is they would start by reading through this and trying to decide, what's critical? What do I absolutely need to keep? And then what could we toss? So the first paragraph says, the next time you shriek at the sight of a spider, be aware that the arachnid can hear you loud and clear from as far as 10 feet away. The surprising discovery by Cornell University researchers adds to the already impressive list of arachnid attributes that include superior vision and ability to weave intricate webs. Awesome. So after reading that, you kind of pause and think, okay, is there stuff in there that's really critical and stuff that's maybe not? Well, for the stuff that's not, what we do is we take our mouse and we highlight it, we select it. So let's say I think, maybe that first bit there, maybe I don't need to have that. So we select it, and then we go up to the highlighter button, but instead of making it bright yellow or something like that, we choose black, like a black Sharpie. We choose black. You can highlight in black. And so when I choose black for the highlighter, boom, it's gone. I've just Sharpied through it. And you just keep repeating that process. So we say, well, maybe the fact that the Cornell University researchers discovered it, maybe that's important. And so maybe I'll take the rest of this and I'll do the same thing. I'll go up to the highlighter, and again, I'll make it black. And they just keep repeating this process down through the entire article. And if every student has the same article, that's cool, because then you can compare them. You could pull up the folder of these in Google Classroom and you could flip through them and see, okay, did different students think different things were important? Now, another nice thing about doing it digitally is if you make a mistake, you can always unhighlight things. So if I decided, did I really want to get rid of something? You could take your mouse and you can go over it again, and it kind of gives you like a little X-ray vision. You can kind of see through the highlighting, and you can say, well, actually, I don't know, I think maybe I wanted to leave that part in. Well, that's okay. Go ahead and reselect it. Go back up to the highlighter button and just choose none, and that will take that back off. So what would this look like in the end? I do have a final example here. So further down at the bottom, I've got my final blacked out version. If I click on this, and again, you may not agree with what I came up with, and that's totally fine. I mean, that's the idea, is it's up to the student to try to think through. And so here is what I ended up coming up with when I went through it, as what I felt was most important. So that's an idea for using the highlighter tool in a different way, using it for text reduction strategy to start with an article and help students identify main ideas, what's most important, and what may not be as necessary. Now, what else can we do with the highlighter tool? Another really fun thing is blackout poetry. So blackout poetry, if you're not familiar with it, the idea is normally you take like a book, like a physical book, like a page of a novel or a page of a book, and you read through the page and you try to find words that kind of speak to you. And the idea is you black out everything else on the page except the words you want to leave behind, and you make a poem out of it. And so there's lots of cool examples online where somebody has taken a page of a book and they go through and they do that so that they can leave behind a poem that they have discovered in that page. This can be a really fun activity for students, because writing poetry, it's tough sometimes. I don't know what words to use. Well, in this case, they don't have to come up with the words. The words are already there. They're just picking the ones they want to keep. And again, you could give every student the same starting text, and wind up with 25 different poems because they're going to see different words in there that speak to them. So how can we do this digitally? Well, that's the idea. Get back to my page here. So if I come down to the bottom of page 2, you will see that I have some sample text for that. So bottom of page 2 under Blackout Poetry, highlighted in green, we have some sample text for a blackout poem. So if you give a click on that, it'll ask if you want a copy, give that a moment to make a copy. And there we go. So this is just, again, from Dogo News. I found an article about trees. So I just copied some text from this article about trees and put it into this Google document. So let's say that was our starting point and say, okay, we're going to make a poem from this article about trees. Well, how would a student do that? Okay, so to do blackout poetry, my suggestion is this. Now, I'm not saying this is the only way to do it. I've seen a lot of people do this different ways. I think this works pretty well. So it's basically a 3-step process. The first step is I encourage the students to temporarily change the color of their Google document background, because that's going to help the highlighting stand out while they're doing it. So bear with me. I'll explain it. It all makes sense as we see this in just a moment. But the first step after they get their text is I encourage them to go up to the File menu, and from the File menu to go down to Page Setup. When they get down into Page Setup, this is where you can do like margins and stuff like that. Well, this is also where you can do page color. So if you click on page color, you can pick a different background color for your document. This is temporary. You'll see why in a moment, but I usually say pick something like a medium gray, just something that's, different than just, pure white. So let's say I choose medium gray as my background color, hit OK. Okay, so now my document's gray and I can still see my text. Okay, so that's step 1. Step 2, now they start going through picking the words they want to keep for their poem and highlighting them white. So they're going to use the highlighter, but not a bright yellow and not a black this time. They're going to use white, which, usually you can't see white, but it's going to make sense. In this case, we're going to be able to see it because our background is gray. Now, I'm not really going to write a poem here. I'm just going to pick some words as examples. But like if I was reading through this, maybe the word stunning, maybe I like that. So I select the word stunning, and then I go up to my highlighter tool and I choose white. And I highlight that white. And then I keep reading through, and maybe I wanted to grab trees. Maybe it's stunning trees. And again, I'm not really going to take the time to write a full poem here, but I'm going through and I start finding things, maybe, more amazing. Maybe that I want to, include in my poem. So I make that white. Now, you don't have to use entire words. They could even just pick a single word out, a single part of a word, like maybe the word entirely. Maybe they don't want that. They just want the word entire. Maybe they're going to use that somehow. So you come up and you highlight just the word entire. So it can even be pieces of it. I'll show you a finished product in a minute. So this one, again, is just I'm just showing you the idea of highlighting them. I'll show you one I actually took some time to work on. But that's step 2. So step 1, change the background to gray. Step 2, go through and find the words that are going to make your poem, stunning trees, more amazing, and who knows, you get the idea. We go through and we highlight the words that are going to make our poem. After we do that, and again, they may change their mind, like later, oh, actually, I don't want the more. Okay, no problem. Just, re-highlight that, go up and say none, and then you can unhighlight it. So they can make changes. So as they're going, they keep, picking new words and changing things until they get it to where they want it. Well, let's say we've written a poem, which I realize this is not a good example of it, but, we'll pretend that I've gone through and I've done that. Step 3 is we go back and we change the background one more time, and you'll see what happens. What we do is we go back into the File menu, we go down to Page Setup, and we're going to once again change our background, but this time, you guessed it, we're going to make the background black. Now, why? Because what that's going to do is everything that didn't get highlighted will suddenly disappear, because it'll be black text on a black background, and only the words we highlighted will still show up. So let's try that. Let's make the background black, hit OK, and boom, there you go. And that's the idea. Now just the text that you selected is left behind. Okay, so what could this look like? Here's some completed examples. Top of page 3. Here's an example where I use that exact same text. This is the same text. And I wound up saying trees, trees, amazing, ancient, antique. The tree in winter, I hope it grows. During the spring, it is a work of art. The flowers transform the tree to create a work of art with beautiful colors. Trees, a simple art to transform the everyday. Yeah. Okay. So maybe not the greatest poem ever written, but you get the idea, and the cool thing is every student's going to see something different. Different words are going to speak to them, and you could wind up with a lot of really cool different poems. Now, do you have to do white highlighting with a black background? No, you can get creative. It's the idea of using the highlighter. So at the top of page 3, here's example number 2, where I did the same poem, but I got more creative with how I did the highlighting. So in this case, I didn't do it as like a blackout poem. Instead, I found the words I wanted and I made them all white with a gray background. And then I went through and I selected everything else and I turned the text and the highlighting the same color. So like all of these words, I made them blue text and blue highlighting. So they became the sky. And then these became, the leaves and the trunk. And so you can get creative. You can do different ways of approaching this, but the idea is using the highlighter tool creatively. All right. Well, we could spend a lot of time on that, but we've got a bunch of other activities to look at. So that's just the first idea, is using the highlighter tool, using it for text reduction strategy, or using it for blackout poetry. Or there's other things like you can use it to, annotate text. A lot of cool things we can do with the highlighting tool. But anyway, that was the first idea. We're gonna move on. I'm taking a quick look, keeping an eye on our chat. Some good people saying that's cool. They like that. Oh, Joanne mentions calling this found poetry. I love it. Yes, that's another good phrase to describe that, found poetry. Okay, well, let's keep on moving, guys. I'm going to clean up a couple of my tabs. I end up having too many things open usually by the time I'm done. So I'm just going to clean up a couple of tabs there and we'll move on. Okay. Activity number 2, emoji learning activities in Google Docs. All right. So for this one, we're going to talk about using the emoji tool that's built into Google Docs. And actually, there's 2 ways you can do this. It is part of the special characters tool, but they've actually just added a new emoji menu option into Docs. So there's 2 ways to get to this. I'll show you both. The special character tools is the original way to get to this, but I'll show both of these. So here's the idea. In a Google document, you are allowed to add emojis. And you probably knew this. I'm probably not telling you something you don't know, but if you weren't aware, in a Google document, you can put emojis. Like in my resource document, these are all emojis. So in front of each of my sections, I put emojis in here for each of the different sections. To get an emoji into your document, there's a couple of ways to do it. So if I go up to the Insert menu, there is an emoji option now in there. That's a newer thing. They didn't used to have it broken out separately, but if you go to the Insert menu, you can just choose emoji right there, and it pops up this little emoji picker where you can scroll through and find an emoji, that you like, and boom, it just drops it right into your document. So that's great. That's awesome. You can definitely do that. If you want, another option is you can go to the Insert menu and then go down to Special Characters. That'll get you to the emojis as well, and it gives you one other cool feature. So normally, yes, I would just go Insert Emoji because boom, I can scroll through them. I can type in and say, okay, I need a picture of a dog. You can just type in dog. That's fantastic. The only reason I might go to the other one sometimes is it has this extra cool feature. If you go to Insert Special Characters, and then from Special Characters, you can choose from the drop-down emoji as the category. It's the same emojis. Here's the one difference. You can draw a picture of your emoji if you can't find it. So if you're trying to find an emoji and you can't find it any other way, you can come to the Insert Special Characters. You can choose emoji as the category. And let's say I needed the emoji of a moon. I could draw the moon here. I mean, I'm sure I could just type in moon, but I could draw it, and there it is. Yay, it found the moon for me, So either way is fine, whichever way you prefer. But the point is, you can put emojis into a document. The question is, why would we do that? So what are some of the activities we can do with it? So let's just think through some possibilities. One thing could be a fun way to have students work on summarization. Taking a story, taking, an article, taking, a book, a movie, whatever the case is, and explaining it using just pictures. So in this case, this is an example of one of those where I took the book Charlotte's Web and I made an emoji version of Charlotte's Web. So you've got, Wilbur and Fern, you've got the farmer who wants to eat Wilbur, and then you've got Charlotte who comes along and builds a web above Wilbur. And everybody gets excited. Everybody applauds because they think it's Wilbur. That is some pig. They think he's special. And because of that, they do not eat Wilbur. And then Charlotte lays an egg, and spoiler alert, she dies. But then the egg hatches and a whole bunch of spiders come out, and they all fly away except for 3 that stay back with Wilbur. So there you go. And so you could have students take a story, take a article, take a poem, take a movie, take, a song, and rewrite it, summarize it using emojis, and then maybe even share them with each other and not tell them, what their original thing was, and see if they can, decode what the story was. So that would be an option. Other things that we could do with emojis would be to write what I call a rebus story. Maybe there's other names for it, but that's how I've heard it referred to in the past. A rebus story is a story where you have got text and pictures. So you're using words, but you're also using pictures. Like when I was a kid, I remember that the highlights for Kids magazine, would always have these rebus stories in there. And so the idea is we could take text and put pictures in with it to write a story. This could be good for little ones who don't know all the words. It could also be great for older students to write stories for younger students. If you want to try this out, you don't really need anything special. You can just, do it in a document. But I do have some templates to get you started if it just helps to kind of jumpstart things. I've got a wintertime, Valentine, and Halloween themed template. So like if you wanted to do the Halloween template, you could, give a click on that, make a copy of it. And basically what it does is I've just pulled out some emojis to get the students started, and then give them a spot down here where they will write their story. So down here, they would write their story, so, maybe they would, they want to say, the moon. And so they write the, and then they come up here and they copy the moon and they put it in, the moon was out, we start writing our story down here below. And if they say, hey, I need a different emoji, these are cool, but I want to add some of my own in there. No problem. They can just go up to insert emoji or special characters, and they can add their own emojis in there as well. So for example, here's like a final example of a story, doing that process. Other things, you could use emojis to explore character emotions. I have a template in here as well. That's this one here, the character emojis template. And what you do with this one is it gives you all these different character emojis as far as emotions go. And what the student does is they pick a character from a book or a story. In this case, I picked Wilbur again from Charlotte's Web. And then using the fill tool, they fill in colors behind the emojis that the character felt, these different emotions. And so down here they write, these are the feelings my character had. And then as they're writing those, they come up here and they highlight the different emojis that match those emotions. So that's cool. I mean, you could also use this for SEL purposes. It wouldn't even have to be a story. It could be a student talking about their own emotions as well. So a lot of possibilities there when it comes to using emojis. I would love to, again, I'd love to hear from you guys. So as we're going through any of these, if you've tried some of these things, if you've done something like this, please share in the chat or in the Q&A how you have used these emoji tools or any of these activities as well. Good. So seeing some comments about great for EL students. Yes, I am with you there. Sounds fantastic. All right, let's keep on going. So next up, after emojis, the next category we're going to look at is close reading activities. Okay, so you're probably familiar with the idea of what a close reading activity is. If you're not, real quick, it's where you take text and you pull certain words out of the text and you make like a word bank from them. And the idea is the student goes back through and they have to put the words back into the text from the word bank. So it's all about, comprehension, context clues, reading through some text and figuring out which vocab words go back in. And there's so many ways to make close reading activities. There's a lot of tools out there for it. Turns out though, you can do this in Google Docs using a new feature called drop-down chips. So the drop-down chips got added maybe sometime in the last 6 months. This is a relatively newer feature inside of Google Docs. And the drop-down chips allow you to have a drop-down menu where you can pick a word from that drop-down menu. And you can use this for a lot of stuff. You can use the drop-down chips for like a rubric. You can use it for, updating the status of like, a project. I thought, hey, this would be a fun way to do a close reading activity. So I'd like to demonstrate that for you. So let me show you how that works. So I'm on page 3 of our resource document. And if anybody joined us late, by the way, just as a reminder to you, you can get to our resources at bit.ly/Kurtz-ELA docs. So if anybody joined us late, I don't want you to feel left out with those. And I'll even drop the link in the chat once again, in case anybody if that's easier for you to get to it. Okay, so let's try this out. So on page 3, close reading activities, I've got highlighted in green, I've got some starter text. So we'll use this to get started. Give a click on that and make a copy. So here is the text I'm going to work from. And let me make this a little bigger so you guys can see it. So this is just from Wikipedia, just a little blurb about frogs. Okay, so I grabbed some text from there, and here's the paragraph we're going to use. And then I've got a spot at the bottom for a word bank. So I'm not saying this is the only way to do this, of course. There's so many ways to do closed reading activities, but using just what's built into Docs, here's what you could do. So the first step I would do is I would read through and I would pick the words I want to take out of the text. Now, for example, I might grab like the word water and say, okay, I'm going to take the word water and I'm going to take it out of the text. Now, you can literally just select it, click on it, and drag it down to the word bank. That'll work fine. Oops, I didn't need to grab the period. We'll put the period back in there. But you can just drag the words right down to the word bank if you want. So maybe I want to take the word water out. Maybe I want to grab the word, let's grab the word survive. We'll pull that down to the word bank. Let's grab metamorphosis. And again, I'll just do a couple. Normally, I think, we do more than 3. But for my quick example, just for this very, very quick example, I'm just going to grab water, survive, and metamorphosis, just so you can see how this works. So the idea is we go through, we pull the words out of the document. And then when we get the words down here, we probably want to alphabetize them. I don't think you want to leave them in the same order they were in. So, we'll put survive below metamorphosis and then water below survive. Okay, there we go. And of course, there are tools to alphabetize if you want. There's a cool add-on. I don't know if I've got it installed on this account or not. I think I do. There's an add-on called Docs Tools, and it does allow for sorting by ascending or descending order for text. So you can use that to alphabetize them for you if you need to. But I would go ahead and get them alphabetized, and then I would turn this not into a bulleted list, but a checklist. That's a newer feature too. If I select the word bank words, don't click on bullets, don't click on numbers, click on the button for checklist. When you do that, it puts little check boxes in front of them. That way, as the students use the words, they can literally check them off and know which ones they've used. Okay, so now I've got the words pulled out. Now I want to make the drop downs. And this is where that feature comes in, called drop down chips. So what you do is you click in the document where you want the drop down to be. You go up to the insert menu, and there you're going to find drop down. So drop down will be in about 1/3 of the way down in the insert menu. Go ahead and click on drop down. And when you do that, it asks, do you want a new drop down or do you want to use a preset one? Well, we're not going to use the preset ones. We're going to create a new one. So we click new drop down, and it pops up a little window. And here we can name this drop down. We'll just call it, word choices or something like that. Whoops, if I could type, that would help. Word choices. There we go. And then we'll put in our words. So we've got metamorphosis. In fact, I should probably use 2 windows and just copy from one to the other. That would make it easier. Survive and water. Okay, so there's my words. Again, if you have a second window open, whoops, I lost my R in metamorphosis. There we go. See, that's what happens when you type it. Metamorphosis. Okay, I think I got it right. And then I probably want to add an option at the top that doesn't have the actual words showing. So I'll probably put in something like select word. and I'll have that be one of the options. And then I'll grab that and drag it up to the top of the list. So it'll say select word, and then these will be in the list for the drop downs. And of course, you can add more, you can rearrange them, you can color code them if you want. If you want to say, oh, let's make that red and green and blue, just so it's easier for the students to tell they picked different words, that's fine. The point is, you fill in your word choices and hit save. And there you go. So now there's a drop down there. If somebody clicks the drop down, they get metamorphosis, survive, and water show up as their options. Well, now what we want to do is we just want to do that for all the different spots. Well, you're like, do I have to type all that in again? No. Once you've done it once, you can just reuse that drop down. So like here, we need another drop down. So I click in that spot and I go insert, drop down, and I just pick the one we already created. Boop, and there it is. Or you can just copy and paste it. You can just right click on it and say copy and go to here's where metamorphosis should be. And I can right click there and I can hit paste. You can just copy and paste the drop downs. So once you've done it once, it's really easy just to copy and paste it. And that's it. That's the idea. So let's see a final version of it. Here's a completed example. Let's make a copy of it. So here's one where I think I did all of the words in there. And so basically the student comes in and they start reading and go, okay, frogs can live on land and in fresh something. Well, they got to look through their word choices, look at their word bank and say, I think it's water. And they select that. And then they can come down and check off water if they want to, make sure they don't accidentally pick it again. And then, they cannot, survive. So they pick survive and they cross that off. You get the idea. Now, this doesn't grade the students. It's not like Google Forms. If you want to grade them, you need something like Google Forms to check it for right or not, but it's very a good way for them to complete it. And then you can have a key that they could compare it to, or you can take a quick look at it and see very quickly if they have selected the right answers there. So there you go. That's an option for using a newer feature in Google Docs called drop-down chips, and that would be a fun way to do that. Caitlin did ask about how the checklist was set up again. Sure thing. Sorry if I went through that too quick. I will undo that and I'll put it back. Okay, so here's the idea with the checklist. Once you've put your words down here, once you pull the words from the top down here, or just retype them whatever way you want, all I did was I took my mouse and I selected those words so that I had those words selected, and with them selected, I went up to the top toolbar where your bulleted list is and your numbered list. Next to there is a menu button that says checklist. So it's very similar to like, here's a bulleted list or here's a numbered list. It's this one to the left that says checklist. And that's what puts the boxes in, and they're actually checkable boxes at that point. Gotcha. All right. Jennifer said, is there a way to allow them to use a word more than once? Or do you have to put the word in it twice? No, they could absolutely use the word more than once. That's not necessarily a good or bad thing. This is not, the cross off down here is just for them to keep things straight. There's nothing that would stop me from coming in and picking water again. Yeah, absolutely. But we're hoping that as they do that, they realize, oh, wait, I already used water. But yeah, if this could be a totally different activity. This could be one where you want them, let's say you're trying to teach them the difference between the different versions of there, like, THERE, THEIR, THEY''RE, all the different theirs. You could have a drop down that has all three versions of there, and then you could have 20 sentences. And in each sentence, they've got to pick the right there. They're going to use the same one over and over again. They're going to use, 6 of one and 7 of the other and 5 of the other or whatever. So yeah, they could be using the same word multiple times. In a case like a close activity, it wouldn't make as much sense. But yeah, that would be perfect for like a grammar activity where they're using it over and over again. I like that idea. Thanks for asking that. See, that's the beauty. I love learning from you guys, and I hadn't really even thought of that. So now that's sparked a whole new idea. So that's fantastic. Thanks so much. All right. Well, let's keep on going. We've got more to look at, and the time is ticking. So let's keep going. What's up next? Next up, choose your own adventure stories. Okay, so love choose your own adventure stories. Of course, they're fantastic. As a kid, I read them lots. I really enjoyed them. And there's a bunch of ways to make your own choose your own adventure stories. You can create choose your own adventure stories with Google Slides. I've actually got a whole training and blog post and help guide on making, choose your own adventure stories and slides. You can do it in Google Forms. You can do it in Google Sites. You can do it in Google Earth even. Honestly, you can. There's a lot, as long as you can branch, as long as you have, hyperlinks to branch, you can do choose your own adventure stories in a lot of tools. However, I think Docs is one of the easiest ways to do it. So especially if you're working with younger students, or if you're wanting students to not get, overwhelmed with all the technology options, Google Docs is a really clean and easy way to do a interactive choose your own adventure story. And it involves using 3 tools: page breaks, headings, and hyperlinks. Those are the 3 things you use in a document to make a choose your own adventure story. All right, so that's what we're going to do. First of all, I think it would be best just to see the end result. For this one, we're going to start with the finished product, and then we're going to go backwards and show you how to make it. So I'm on page 3, bottom of page 3, choose your own adventure stories. And the sample that I'm going to show you is called Dragon Quest. So if you come here and give a click on this yellow highlighted link for Dragon Quest, that will open up this document for you. It is a view-only document for you guys, so you would just read through it. I've got edit rights to it, but it would be a view-only document for you guys. In the first couple of pages, there's nothing to choose. The first couple of pages are just, hey, this is Dragon Quest, tells you a little bit about it. This was actually written by my students when I was teaching. We did this project. We didn't have Google Docs back then, so they wrote it otherwise, and I turned it into a Google Doc later on. But the first couple of pages, there's no choices. It's just, hey, page 1, there's a dragon and the king wants you to kill it. And then page 2, here's the map of where you need to go. So at first, it's just kind of telling you what the story is. But when you get to page 3, that's where this becomes a choose your own adventure story. So on page 3, we read the text, and then we get a choice. It says, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to the peddlers for supplies? If I click that, it says it links to page 4. Or do you want to continue on without supplies? It says it links to page 5. Aha! So now we get to start making choices. So I'll make, well, I definitely want to go to the peddlers. I don't want to go out without supplies. So I'm going to click on page 4. And now I read through that and I get my supplies. And okay, I come to a fork in the path. Do I take the right path? That's page 6. Do I take the left path? That's page 7. Well, let's go left. So I choose page 7. Now I read page 7 and I read through all of that and I come across shadowy figures. So what do? Do I arm my sword? That's page 10. Do I arm my bow? That's page 11. Do I run? That's page 12. Oh, I'm going to run. And unfortunately, turns out they were goblin warriors and they get me. Fair warning, this was written by 7th and 8th graders, and you die a lot in this story. But if you die, no worries. You just go back to the beginning, and that takes you back to page 1, and you start over again, and you start reading through it again. And it's a really good story. It's big. This is 91 pages long. It is not a short story. It is 91 pages, and the kids did a really awesome job on this. So if you want to get them started, if you want to get your students started, have them read through Dragon Quest. And this could be a neat way to get them excited about doing a choose your own adventure story. So the question then is, okay, so how do you do it? How do we actually make one of these? And so how do these page breaks, headings, and hyperlinks work? Okay, so what I've got next in the agenda document on the bottom of page 3 is some sample text. This is the first 7 pages of the Dragon Quest story. I just threw them into a document here. So I'm going to use this sample text to show you how we made it a choose your own adventure story. So if you want to try, please feel free to click the link too. You can always do that and try it out yourself. But I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this text. And what we're basically saying is we're saying, okay, let's pretend our students have written their story and now they just need to make it hyperlinked. They need to make it clickable so that you can jump around. And by the way, this is great for a group of students. It could be a single student writing the story, but choose your own adventure stories lend themselves really well to a group of students. Maybe 4 or 5 students, and they pick different parts of the story to write, and oh, you write that path and you write that option. And then because it's a doc, they can all write it together. And when it's all done, they'll have their story. Well, again, this is only the first 7 pages. Dragon Quest is like 91 pages. So we're just going to start with this. But here's the idea. If they've got their story written, they want to do the following 3 things. After it's done, they want to start by adding page breaks in. And what I mean by that is each page should be on its own physical page in the document, because you don't want to accidentally see the next page when you are reading the story. So, for example, where it says page 2, I want to insert a page break. So I would go to insert, and then I would go to break, and then I would go to page break. However, I can just use Control Enter as well, or Command Enter, either way. That's probably a lot faster. So I'll do that for my other ones. Page 3, Control Enter, page 4, Control Enter, page 5, Control Enter, page 6, Control Enter, and page 7, Control Enter. Okay, so first of all, I just want to get every page on its own so I don't accidentally see what the next page says. Okay, awesome. Next is headings. Now, what we need to do for the hyperlinks to work, we have to have something for them to link to. Google Docs only allows you to link to 2 things internally. You can link to bookmarks and you can link to headings. So we're going to use headings. So what we do now is we go to the top of each page and we select the text at the top, like page 1, page 2, page 3. And then you use the drop down where it says normal text and you change it to a heading. Heading 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter. They're just different sizes. I'll go with heading 1. So I make that a heading. And I do the same thing for page 2. I take that text and I make that a heading. And I just keep repeating this all the way down. And again, the reason why we're doing this is because a hyperlink, to actually hyperlink to something, you either have to have a bookmark to hyperlink to or a heading. And I'm choosing to use headings. That will work better in this case, I feel. And so there you go. Just go down and put in a format of headings for all of the tops of the pages. Excellent. Okay, we're doing good. We've got page breaks. We've got headings in there. Now, the last thing we're going to do is the hyperlinks. Now it's time to make this clickable. Now remember, the first couple of pages, there's actually no choices. So I'm going to skip page 1. We don't really make a choice there. Page 2 is just introductory. We don't make a choice there. But here, page 3, now the choices come in. Okay, so going to the peddlers for supplies or continuing on without supplies. Now at this point, it's important to remember what pages they go to. So I would encourage maybe having the students using Post-it notes or some sort of a graphic organizer to keep track of how all the pages link. But if you go to the peddlers, that actually is page 4. And if you decide to continue on without supplies, that actually is page 5. So here's the way this works. What we do is we take our mouse and we select the option, go to the peddlers for supplies, and we insert a hyperlink. We go up to insert and we go down to link. You can also press Control K. That's for hyperlinking as well. Now, when I do that, at first, it's expecting a web address, www. something or other. Well, that's not what we want. We're not trying to go out to a website. We want to jump to a different page. Well, look at the bottom of this pop-up. It says headings and bookmarks. Aha! If I come down here and click on headings and bookmarks, there it is. There's all my headings. Well, this should go to page 4. So I pick the heading for page 4. Boom, there it is. That now links to page 4. If I do the same for continue on without supplies, I say insert link. I choose headings and bookmarks. That one should go to page 5. I choose that heading. Perfect. So that goes to 4. That goes to 5. There you go. And then if you go to a page where, you die, like that happens a lot, you select that text and you make a link that sends you back to the beginning. So I come here and I go, okay, insert link, headings and bookmarks, page 1. And so now that one loops back around to page 1. And that's it. You just keep repeating that process, linking in all of the choices to the appropriate pages they go to. And then that's how we wind up with Dragon Quest, where we can come in now and say, oh, I want to, go get supplies, go to page 4, and I want to take the left path. But this time I'm not going to run. I'm going to arm my sword. Awesome. Yay. So now I get to continue on to page 13, and now the story continues. So that's the idea behind that. So awesome stuff. Okay, let's pause there for a second. I see a little activity in the chat. I want to make sure that I'm addressing any questions you guys have. We've got, this reminds me of video games and interactive shows. Yeah, like on Netflix, they've got some interactive choose your own adventure shows. Excellent. Another question, is there a link where adventure stories are already made? You know, no, wouldn't that be great? That would be great. No, I am not aware. I am not aware of an online spot where you can get to others that have been created. Feel free again to use Dragon Quest. You know, that one, the link is in here. You can absolutely use that to get them started if they want to see some ideas. That would be awesome. Cynthia asked where the pictures came from. In this particular case, the students drew those. Now, it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, you could just add your own images by going insert image, search the web, and you could search for pictures that you want to add. In this case, no, that was part of the project. The students wrote the stories, and then they drew the pictures. And the way they did it was they literally took 8.5 by 11 sheets of like printer paper, and they drew the picture. They outlined it with a thick black marker. We scanned it in, and then they colored it in with a paint program on the computer. And so that's how we made the pictures. But you know, it's totally, you know, any way you want to do it. But that's how we did the pictures with ours. But yeah, you could use Google Drawings, you could use Google Slides, you could use, you know, Jamboard, you could use auto draw, you could use all kinds of stuff, but in this case we literally drew them by hand, scanned them, and colored them for that. All right, let's keep going. We are running out of time, man. I still got more stuff to show you. So we'll do our best to get through a few more things. I know there's never enough time and always too many ideas, so let's keep on moving here. The next thing we're going to take a look at here is pre-writing with embedded graphic organizers. Okay, so let's talk about the idea of graphic organizers. So let's say you want your student to write an essay, and it's going to be a compare and contrast essay. They need to compare and contrast, you know, two concepts, and you know they need to write an essay for that. Well, before they just write that essay, maybe it would be helpful for them to do a little graphic organizer where they get their ideas together. Okay, here's the similarities, here's the differences, and they start organizing all their ideas. That would be great to have them do some pre-writing with a graphic organizer and then actually do their essay that they're going to write. Well, that could be done, of course, you know, with a separate piece of paper. They could have, you know, a graphic organizer here, then they could have their writing over there. What if we want to put it all together? And so the idea is Google Drawings can be used inside of a Google document. You can put a drawing inside of a document. You can actually embed it in the document. And so what you can wind up with is a graphic organizer that's inside of the drawing, or excuse me, inside of the document. The student completes that, and then they write their essay. Let me show you how that works. So we're now on to page, what page are we on? 4. We're on page 4 now. So page 4, and highlighted in green, you'll see I've got an example here. So I'm going to click on my Google document to make a copy of my example here. And this is, this one's not done. This is the one we're working on. But basically it says, double click the Google Drawing graphic organizer below. We're going to add one in to open it. Use that to organize your ideas. And then when done, save and close and write your essay below. So what I want to do is I want to insert into this document, I want to put in this Google document a Google Drawing graphic organizer. Now, to do that, the way it works is we go up to our, let me get to the right spot here, sorry about that. We go up to our insert menu, and in the insert menu, drawing is one of the options. So I go insert drawing, and then I just click new. And when I click new, it opens up a blank place where I can make a Google drawing. So now I could use the shapes, and I could start building a graphic organizer, putting in shapes and arrows and things like that for the student to complete. Now, for right now, to save a little time, I've already got a whole bunch of graphic organizers you can pull from. As you can see, here's a blog post I did with 30 free graphic organizers, and then here's links to others with tons of them. I'm going to use this one, though, that's over here that I've already got highlighted in green. It's a compare and contrast graphic organizer. So I'm going to click on that and make a copy of it. And I'm just going to copy and paste this right into that Google Docs embedded drawing. So this is the graphic organizer I want to use. It's just a Google drawing that I had made. I'm going to take my mouse and I'm just going to select the content. So I'm just grabbing my mouse, dragging it over the content to grab it. And I'm just going to right click copy. I'm just copying this pre-created graphic organizer. Now, inside of my Google Doc, this is where I'm going to insert it now. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to click Insert Drawing. I'm going to choose New. And now I'm going to paste that copied one right in here. So I'm going to right click and paste. And there it is. And if I need to make it bigger or smaller, I can adjust the size, move it around until I'm happy with how it looks in there. But as long as I'm happy with that, I can now hit Save and Close, and it's going to embed that into my document. Now, it's not a picture of a graphic organizer. It's an actual interactive graphic organizer. We can use it. It's alive. So if I now if I now push this out, if I created this and I went to Google Classroom and I said, let's push a copy of this out to every student, they would get their own copy and they can actually work on this. So let's try it. So let's say, we push this out. So I'll go File, Make a Copy, and, we'll pretend I'm pushing a copy out to the student. So now here I am, I'm the student. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got my assignment here. So the student comes in and goes, okay, I need to double click on this and fill in all my ideas. Okay, so they double click on it. It pops it open. And let's say in this case, the student is doing an essay where they're comparing The Lion King to Hamlet. So let's say that's what they are doing an essay about. And now they start thinking of their ideas and they go, okay, so what's the same? What's similar between The Lion King and Hamlet? So they go, well, the main character is a prince. There's a murderous uncle. The father dies, things like that. And then they think, okay, well, what makes The Lion King different? There's a happy ending and, the father dies when he's a child. And, well, what makes Hamlet different? The mother remarries and most of the characters die. Well, the point is they could fill all this out, then hit Save and Close. And now it's actually right there in their document. And now they come down and they start writing into their essay, So, the difference, and I could start writing my essay out here, below. But the beauty of this is when they turn this in now, you don't just have their final essay they wrote, you've also got their pre-writing. You've got that built right into it. So using Google Drawings inside of documents, it's a great way to really juice up your document and make it more interactive for your student. So pretty cool. I did see a question about, oh, would that work on an iPad? Probably not. Some things don't work on mobile. Drawings, I'm not sure that that's supported within the mobile app. So I am sorry, Gina, I'm not positive about that, but my guess is probably not. Okay, we're getting really close to the end of our time, and I was afraid we're going to run out, so I'll just mention real quick the last couple of things. I won't have time to demonstrate them. There's another section in here where we talk about using the word count tool to tell the students to have a limit on how long they write. So if they need to summarize something, say, okay, you need to summarize the story, but you can only use 20 words, or you can only use 140 characters, like the old Twitter limit. And then they use the word count tool to find out how many words or characters they used, and then they have to keep rewriting it until they can get it small enough to fit within that. This is a really good way to work on summarization and trying to find just the right word to describe something without going into great detail. Now I've also got another section here on punctuation practice, where I've got some tips and tricks on how you can take some raw text and using some tips and tricks inside of Google Docs, you can strip out all of the punctuation and all of the capitalization. And so you wind up with just raw text that the students have to go back through and figure out where should they put in the capitals, where should they put in the punctuation. And I've got some directions in here on how you can strip out that stuff in your documents. Again, I know we're about out of time, so let me do a couple of quick things. I'm going to look at the chat once more to see if you guys have any questions or comments that you want to share in there. I do want to remind you that everything we looked at in this session, all of the resources can be found at bit.ly/Kurtz-ELA docs. That'll get you back to that document that has all of the templates and the blog posts and the explanations and stuff like that. The session is also being recorded, so You can get back to this later on the SPARCC conference website. Under live sessions, you'll find all of the sessions from today. These links will be replaced with links for the recordings. You can also get certificates of completion for these by filling out those forms there. Give it a little bit of time. I will process through those and run those certificates later on. Please do feel free to share out on social media with SPARCC22 as the hashtag. And hopefully you can catch some more live sessions as well as the pre-recorded sessions that we have today. I have one more session coming up after this on Google Tools to support all learners. So perhaps I'll see you in that one. But let me take a quick look and see, looking at the chat, if there's any questions. Seeing some great thank yous. I really appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for sharing that. Let's see if there's anything else in here. Oh, somebody was mentioning combining this with a Google Escape Room would be awesome. I love that idea as well. Good stuff. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. And if I missed your question, I apologize. I think I saw all of the questions there, but hopefully this will let you take Google Docs to the next level and have some really cool creative activities with your students. Hey, and if they make choose your own adventure stories or things like that, please send them my way. I would love to see what they create, and I'd be happy to share those out. So thanks so much. All right, guys, take care. Have a wonderful rest of the conference.